Welcome to Tidbit Talkin. This is a series that consists of spewing out assorted thoughts which arose from somebody who thinks too much, taking in, and generally loving various entertainment media by the boatload. These tidbits may be mini theories, observations, or simply jokes. Hopefully people will find them entertaining or at least interesting. And who knows, maybe they'll lead to others looking at what amuses them in different ways than before. Also, bear in mind that everything blabbed about in these videos comes from the perspective of somebody who's experienced every main story bit connected with whatever works currently being gone over. So spoilers are a definite. However, other works set in a shared continuity will typically solely be referenced in a way that only makes sense to anybody who's also experienced those ones fully up until their same time occurring points. Sort of a coded nod kind of deal. So, while things will be more fun for viewers who've indulged with an entire universe's works, nobody who has yet to do so will get non-experienced events spoiled. Now, with all of that out of the way, here we go. Enter Zoom. Zoom probably desires the Flash emblem as proof of Scarlet Speedster slaughtering because Reverb has already vibed a potential future in which Harry developed a power-stealing device that's embedded within it. Afterwards, Hunter would check the tossed treasured trinket to see if there was still salvageable speed force within it, and depending on whether or not there was enough present for velocity-induced death preventing, he'd either gleefully cure himself or perform a timeline reset. Dr. Light, still being capable of turning invisible inside her pipeline cell, may have been the final push Cisco needed to consider true meta power dampening tech development absolutely necessary. Cisco's trouble with vibing Harry likely isn't just because he doesn't have the hang of his powers yet. Him not being able to see a Wells as somebody completely separate from Eobard Thawne is probably getting in the way of helpful vision generating quite a bit. Utilizing terminal velocity to level the playing field with Zoom didn't go as Barry planned because he didn't take into account his opponent's hand speed and was rewarded with a nice demon claw gloved pummeling for his oversight. Rather than literally grabbing Barry's thrown lightning and tossing it back, it's more probable that Zoom simply converted Flash's healthy Speed Force energy into his own drugged-up variety, then immediately performed a violent return to sender maneuver. Zolomon may have discovered direct chucked current consumption while he was looking for ways to cure himself, but gave up on the idea as a solution because he could never figure out how to keep all that stolen shocking speed all healthy and whatnot. As a fellow super speed haver, Zoom would obviously know the best way of not murdering Barry while still making it appear as if he really wants to. In fact, seeing as aside from the whole hopping dimensions right away thing, Hunter and Barry seem to have possessed nigh identical power balances before one got all speedroid jacked up. Their healing capacities were probably more or less exactly even. Given that Zolomon was all about that leech off of others to live life, he likely figured out how to correctly assess another speedster's capabilities through observation alone. Thus, there was no worry for him about accidentally killing his Crimson competitor with a swift spine severing. Harry's speed-dampening serum didn't work because most of what he would know about how a Flash's powers work would have been taken from interviews or whatever with his Earth's Jay Garrick, since energy from a certain force wouldn't have been available to him before his first universe arrival. Also, his own arrogance, coupled with Zoom's apparent rule with power, not planning, method of operating, probably prevented him from considering that the Grim Speedster may have been using performance enhancers, and such information would definitely help out his little project's progress. The final spark of inspiration needed to finish his mobility melting medicine probably arrived when he helped Caitlin work on its opposite for Barry Allen helping purposes. That is, he figured a chemical that stunted a speedster's breathed air and blood processing is what needed to be made, and developed one with normal oxygen levels in mind. The stuff was simply too weak for velocity vigor vaporizing. Guerrilla warfare. Zolomon could have discovered Grodd's imminent arrival via some good old-fashioned temporal shenanigans and decided upon unleashing an attack in the last episode that was so brutal it would leave Team Flash believing Zoom might think their hero is truly dead. Hunter would have taken advantage of this nemesis-looking deceased situation so he could hold off on speed training intended meta-sending for a bit without appearing any less ruthless while also saving on resources in more than one way. Not only would the gruesome gorilla already provide a sufficient Scarlet Speedster strength supplementing scuffle on its own, but odds are that Grodd would have also killed any Zoom-sent minions before they could serve their intended purpose as woefully ignorant punching bags. Cisco mistaking Hawk Girl for a bird man could very well be because the whole reincarnating soulmates deal made him feel a masculine presence even though he was only physically seeing one half of Destiny's down-drenched dynamic duo. Harry's hesitation with putting passion into that feelings confession displaying sketch is of course because he already has trouble conveying emotional stuff to his real child. Plus the fact that he was performing for somebody who could suddenly burst into vision having upon experiencing things like being nearby sentimentally intense people probably didn't help with awkwardness avoidance. In addition to that previously mentioned, Grodd already provides enough practice and might massacre minions deal, Hunter may have been avoiding the Psychic Simeon because confronting him could potentially result in mind-read-sprung true identity revealing. The breaches in Harry's home universe are probably spread out worldwide instead of just being Central City confined like they are on Earth 1 because there wasn't any tech there malfunctioning in a particularly special way that could focus so much crazy multidimensional energy when Singularity stuff started. Legends of today. Caitlin stated that Barry's fastest running speed at this point was a little over Mach 2 when he traveled through time. That is, of course, quite a bit slower than one would need to go if era hopping was the intention. It's likely that for speedsters, their mobility isn't what needs to be jacked up if they don't like the present anymore. Rather, they merely must be vibrating at a speed force matching frequency, and then subsequently change to an era of aim identical one from there. Mr. Allen's accidental jump back in Season 1 likely only had him located in the Speed Force for an incomprehensible instant because he performed his history hopping through buried instinct alone. Thus his targeting couldn't really be controlled beyond feeling like yesterday was so much better. The trouble Barry has with swiftness surging at this season's beginning is because all the tears in his universe made it difficult for a certain force to fuel him properly. The Flash's deduction that Savage's super skills are mystical, not medical, may have come about because his Speed Force connection grants instincts that let him feel out when otherworldly whatnot is afoot. Magic isn't that different from physics-defying extra-dimensional electricity, after all. What with the normal rules altering and everything, perhaps there's a general otherworldly scent. Harry probably couldn't find anybody's help to develop a speed enhancer for Jay Garrick on his own Earth because he couldn't risk the information getting leaked and subsequently discovered by Zoom. Even with the possibility of crazy time travel abuse, Hunter probably isn't able to stop Harry from developing a new velocity serum because he currently can't stand squashing Dr. Caitlin Snow's pursuits. Cisco is likely vibing Kendra almost exclusively, not only because of his feeling for her, but also the fact that she constantly reincarnates and will become a time traveler probably means she's soaked in weird energy, so it freaks out his powers instincts. Plus, being stalked by an immortal serial killer technically makes her mere presence a huge threat. Carter jokingly calls Oliver Robin Hood. This is probably funny to the superhero formerly known as Prince Khufu because he met the guy just like Savage did. Legends of yesterday. Kendra's trouble with rage-related power activating may be the result of her Battle Priestess origin being more open to different cultures than Carter's Warrior Prince one. That is, while her counterpart had to keep their homeland prioritized as per his ruling duties, Shayera could be somewhat more detached since she was mostly concerned with the higher powers watching over them and their country rather than just Egypt itself. Carter can't remember their original deaths because he doesn't accept his new life as its own existence, instead choosing to view things as if the initial go-around never ended. Kendra, on the other hand, accepts each life as its own. Thus, she's able to recall that first fateful fatality. Plus, her praying kick-starting the whole endless rebirth thing probably helps a bit too. Running to stand still. In addition to the whole him-owing Snart deal, Martin may have broken Captain Cold out of Iron Heights because somebody else going around freezing things could provide some ample opportunities for both misdirection and own skin-preserving frame-ups. Just like with Grodd before, Hunter likely held off on villain sending this episode because he abused time travel and found out that two people capable of gleefully killing both minions and Flashes were about to arrive. Unlike with the potent ponder power packing primate, fake Garrick didn't have to worry about any real self-exposing scenarios with these two, so he stuck around and accrued more hero points with Earth 1's Star Labs team. Snart's cold gun modification that makes the core go critical when grip losing happens can obviously be turned on and off, as otherwise he'd never be able to hold anything else. Harry's exasperated exclamation of magnetism being what forced those blast-springing boxes to leave for otherworldly pastures all at once was probably just an extreme simplification using what's basically a one-word analogy that he belted out under stress so Cisco would shut up and let him work. What he really wanted to say was likely some crap about distinct dimensional data duplicates dragging each other along because portals get confused or whatever when it feels like things are in two places at once. Barry obviously didn't forgive Thawne, as demonstrated a couple episodes down the line and forever afterwards. What Mr. Allen really meant when saying, "I forgive you," whilst looking upon Harry, is that he no longer blames any Wells-related individuals or even attributes for what Eobard did. It's simply the point where true, those two are definitely separate individuals, filled mindsets became his normal cranium cargo. There's a deleted scene in Season 1 that stated Thawne also took all of Harrison's memories and emotions. So before this magical Christmas Season 2 moment, Barry may have been worried that such stuff not being able to cease any present-day reverse flashing meant Wells possessed unrepentant murderer capacity equaling Eobard's. Potential energy. Speedsters are likely extra prone to massive amounts of horrific nightmares because their extra fast idea manufacturing plants go into overdrive with emotional contract fulfilling when there aren't any possibility eliminating facts or even just hints making certain situations seem silly. Hunter seems rather amused throughout the whole turtle ordeal. It makes sense for the guy to find somebody who solely takes sentimental value stuffed items interesting because his only cherished possession is a murderous father originating piece of headgear that constantly reminds him about everybody being horrible. Turtle being a small-time thief before the particle accelerator made him Mr. Magnificent Movement Murderer likely played a part in his power development because he was being all stealthy and meticulous while the magic science kaboom was doing its thing. Zolomon is, of course, absolutely thrilled about Barry being turtle overpowering capable because it proves the guy will soon be strong enough to serve as an adequate, extraordinary energy entree. Wally's anger at Joe and Iris mostly stems from the kid forcing himself to believe they must be horrible in some way because he can't see his dear mother as a person who'd do drugs and run away from her family. Surely everybody else must be the true villains. The Reverse Flash returns. Thawne was able to get some win early in the Flash's career without any date-related knowledge because Speed Force time travel clearly only requires intention and general awareness of how things played out, not calendars. Eobard likely got to the period he wanted to visit by focusing on a time where the Flash just became an everyday occurrence. Such a point would have been chosen because not only should his nemesis be quite experienced and power lacking, there also wouldn't be too many super allies around as backup. Harry's turtle termination may not have been necessary for his slowness supplying study. The deed probably needed to be carried out so it looked like Mr. Wells was fully playing along with Zoom's plan via making not flash speed stealing options non-existent, which of course would put off Jesse killing for at least a little while longer. Harry's explanation of the Speed Force acting like a bomb shelter and creating time remnants probably extends to any now never been born folks' homes on top of their bodies. That is, in order to keep the current timeline intact, which of course was formed by history-hopping humans manipulating it, those folks and every event that made them who they were are held together by the Speed Force until they are no longer required for reality's structural integrity. Earth 2 Wells likely deduced the existence of these crucial chronological copies because he studied time travel to see if Jay Garrick could and would stop Zoom with it. On that note, Harry probably figured out the timeline would start fading away if Thawne's temporal duplicate got stopped, but just told everybody that fixed point junk because he didn't want to argue with Barry and co. about why he shouldn't save Nora. His primary reason for not wanting a timeline tossing is of course him not knowing how Zoom having Jesse-related things would be affected by such an event. Thawne could be forcing Tina to learn about making that tachyon device portal because he doesn't want anybody Team Flash tied, knowing that yellow suit guy is more than just the Flash's crazy opposite. Stabby McDandelion getting exposed as a Thawne with particular skills might make him easier to track throughout history after all. Alternatively, Thawne may not have known too much about tech at this point because he was spending all his time Speed Force studying. He likely decided to bone up on engineering and whatnot after this so he wouldn't get stuck again even when no Tina McGee types were available. Thawne's decision to kill Tina probably came about because the tech he had her put together getting invented too early could be quite timeline detrimental. Cisco's excitement over being able to see possible futures likely boosted his powers even more than Harry's fancy goggles. Kinda like what happened with Barry in Season 1's Power Outage. Hunter may not have been totally lying when stating that he looked for a Jay Garrick on this Earth and couldn't find one. He probably did actually look for AJ first, because if Earth 1 had its own, there might have been another chance at a successful speed swiping. Zolman replacing his damaged cells with healthy ones from a doppelganger wouldn't work even if they were perfectly identical, because there simply couldn't be enough to replace all the ruined parts of a formerly hyper metabolism. Endings are a pain, but all of you are fantastic. See ya.